All right, can I call the April 18, 2023 River Trail School District 26 Board of Education meeting to order at 7 p.m. As a reminder, please turn off or silence all electrical devices. And could you please join me with the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mrs. Johnson, could you please take roll?
Yes. Yes. Friedland?
Here.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Did I do the 8?
You're in action, so 10 minutes. No problem.
Okay. Okay. So Friedland is present. Okay. Camardo?
Here.
Fiorito?
Here.
Grimpy?
Here.
I am here. Fisterer?
Here.
And Ronstadt.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. Looking over the consent agenda, are there any items that any member would like to remove or further discuss? Or is there any question of clarification needed? All right, hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda in its entirety as presented, which includes the following: the Board of Education meeting minutes from March 21st, 2023, the Board of Education closed session meeting minutes from March 21st, 2023, the personnel report, and the actual payrolls, bills, and checks.
So
by
moved.
Grimpy?
Sorry. Second?
Sorry, did you jump in there?
So who we got?
Let's go with Pfister and Friedland, please.
Fisterer made it and Friedland second. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Ronstadt?
Yes.
To Friedland?
Yes.
Grimpy?
Yes.
Camardo?
Yes.
Fisterer?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Fiorito.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And RTEA comments. Bob, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the RTA Executive Committee and the entire membership, I'd like to thank the administration and the board for our continuing wonderful working relationship. It's important that you know that this isn't just lip service. I'm on the IEA Board of Directors, and very often when I go down to Springfield, we'll have our war stories, and it's extremely common to hear stories from other directors about their local boards and the toxicity and vitriol and just bad blood that runs deep with them. So really take to heart and be proud of the relationship that you have with your union here. I know I do. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob, and that is reciprocated. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is visitors' comments. At this time, I'd like to recognize any members of the audience to approach the board with their comment or question by completing a visitor comment card. Please do note that the board and administration typically do not respond, and if you wish for a response, please provide your name and number or email for a member of the board or administration to get back to you. Speakers are encouraged to limit their time for others to participate, a 3-minute time limit per speaker with an overall 60-minute maximum for visitors' comments. Majority of the board can vote to extend time as deemed appropriate per policy 2, subset 230. Having no visitors? I said that for nothing. Next up is board communications. It's an open agenda item for any board members to participate. Floor is yours.
I was at Wheeling High School tonight and Prospect last Tuesday. I just wanted to give a shout out to the River Trails Middle School track and field team. They were fantastic. Both last Tuesday and tonight, they were amazing. So it's Mr. Cooperman, Miss Casella, who else? Kaminsky, Trace, who else? Farley, yeah, he was there too. Yeah, so a shout out to all 5 of them. The number of kids we have in the program is incredible. I mean, we got more than MacArthur. We had probably as many as Lincoln last week, And the girls last week really carried us, and tonight the boys and the girls were doing very well. So shout out to them.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Because I don't know if we're going to have another moment to discuss. But Ben, wish you the best of luck and congratulations. I was deeply saddened when I read Jody's email. I would say that you advanced our online presence and communication 30 years in 2 years. So it was a fantastic job for what you did, and thankfully, what you've done will stay, and you can't take that with you. But congratulations, well earned, and we're going to miss you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I do. I want to comment on that as well. I talked at a emergency board meeting in 214. It'll be 2 weeks as of Thursday. And I pretty much talked about how great our district is with communicating board meetings and how we do it, and how we use social media and our marquees, even emails, because District 214, which is where I'm headed, is more than 10 times larger than us, but they're 10 times less effective than we are when it comes to giving people, stakeholders, the opportunity to attend meetings. And it's disappointing. It really was, to have an emergency board meeting and nobody knew about it except for me and the guy from the Daily Herald. And that's not the way it should be. So Ben, exactly what Lou said. You have really brought us, great hire from Dr. Wagner. You've really put us in a position where we can say that we communicate with all our stakeholders in a way that's respectful and allows them to make the choice whether they want to see it or not. Thank you, Ben.
Anybody else?
And I know I communicated this to several of the board members, but I was super excited to see in the mailer or the flyer or whatever you want to call it from the Mount Prospect Public Library that the Steel Drum Band from River Trails Middle School will be performing there on April 28th. I already registered. You do have to. So yeah, it was cool to see. It was just neat to see. So hopefully people can attend.
Is that part of the library tour versus Prospect Heights?
Maybe. Maybe.
We got people, check out the
Yeah.
Not to end on a somber note, but it was very touching to see the love and support to Mr. Keene's family at his service. So thank everyone who took time out of their day to attend. There was just an outpouring of love for his family and friends, not just by River Trails, but it was nice to see that large group go and attend, but also all the other schools that he attended and students he touched and athletes that he coached. And it was just, so sorry to end on a somber note on this section, but it was nice to see everyone rally around his family. Next up is new business, education services, to start it off. So Mrs. Seifert, you have the floor.
All right, I believe that first up is the Consolidated District Plan. I apologize in advance for the very small font that printed in the board packet. That is the only way, unfortunately, to print it from the state application site. So I hope your eyes survived that process of reading. The Consolidated District Plan is something that initiated in the 2019-2020 school year with grant applications. What the state was intending to do with this was to bring different groups together in order to use grant-funded monies in consolidation together versus creating silos among the different grant funds. In our district, that's pretty simple to do, seeing as we have a team of approximately 2 that writes the majority of the grants to the state, but in larger districts where you have many different departments in charge of writing grants, that's not always the case. So myself, in partnership with Dr. Cohen, wanted to present the Consolidated District Plan to you for approval. We haven't brought it to the board since that first year of 2019-2020. We do not need to bring it to the board every year for approval if significant changes haven't ensued. However, since the board has changed in its makeup in such a long time, we thought it would be prudent for us to bring it to you to see if you had any questions prior to approving it in May's meeting. So really, that's the only information I have from you, other than the timeline of our grants. This is kind of what kickstarts the grant process for the year. We need to have an approved consolidated district plan before we can begin submitting our other grants in the different areas. So as soon as we have this approval and the grants open up, we can start the writing process for the year.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Is this, once it gets approved, is this on the web?
Gosh, probably in the board minutes, but other than that, I don't know where it would be.
But it would be in the, it wouldn't be in the board minutes for the public to
Right.
go looking at it. The only reason I say that is because I don't know how many people sat and read through the whole thing. It took me 3 hours to read through it because I read the whole thing. And what I could tell whose voice was writing what section, by the way you write. It was very interesting. But the reason I thought it would be informative to be on the web is because it describes our curriculum. It talks about what we do for individual students who are not meeting the state standards. Specifically talks about how we do that. It talks about our libraries, our gifted program. It talks about something that we as a board know, but not many people in the community know, that the middle school teams by department meet with the high schools to review expectations, teaching objectives, and student needs. We know that, but the community doesn't know
Sure.
that. But if they could go see this grant, and I find things like this very interesting to read. You guys all know that. It's the little detail, the nitty-gritty, but I'm sure there's other people in the community who would like to know all of these things that we do. The administrators come to us and tell us all of the things they're going to do, but you tend to forget. And as I was reading through it, I thought, oh yeah, I've seen this document before, but many years ago.
Right.
It's well-written. It has to be in order to get the money for the grant. I understand that too. But I think it would be well worth it to be on the web.
Yeah, I wonder if we
you
could
did a
find
great
a more.
job.
Thank you. We might be able to find a more user-friendly way to publish it. We do have it in a Google Doc that we collaborate on, so we might be able to use Ben while he's still here to clean that up and figure out a way to publish
Yes,
it.
yeah. But
Sorry, Ben.
Other than that, it's great information, and you both did a very good job.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So this will be brought back to the board on May 16th for action.
Yeah, it'll be in consent agenda on the 16th.
So next up is the school safety update.
All right, I'm going to invite Principal Daly to join me.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. And I'm really grateful and excited to be able to share with all of you, in partnership with Christy, the work that we've been doing this year relative to our safety plans across the whole district. The first thing I'd like to say is that none of this work is done alone or in a silo. Our partners with the Mount Prospect Police Department and the Mount Prospect Fire Department are so positive and consistent, and all of this work started with them and continues to go in concert with the work and learning that they're doing and the work and learning that we're doing. So that's super important for all of us to keep in mind as we make changes, as we improve, as we step back and say what's working, what's not working. It's also important to understand that all the work that we do from an administrative level, from a school level, a district level, always falls back on making sure we remain aligned with our strategic plan and reviewing our safety plan, finishing the work that was started before COVID and then kind of got paused because of COVID, and then reminding and recognizing that this is a topic that is very sensitive, and it is urgent for our community members, for our staff members, and all of our families. And everything we do needs to be aligned with the strategic plan. And so that is always at the forefront and the foundation of the work that we do.
So this summer, Karen and I sat down with Principal Margulies, or Superintendent Margulies, sorry, and attempted to decide what could we work on for our internship project. And unfortunately, at the time, safety, public safety, school safety was definitely at the forefront of everybody's minds. And when we looked at how do we improve the systems that we have within our district, we did some research on best practice. We partnered with our police and fire, and we dialogued deeply in order to figure out what would really create a healthy safety response plan in our district. And we looked at these 4 areas. Number one, we need to have clear documentation that's understandable from everyone within our community, all of our stakeholders, everyone internal that needs to employ the plan needs to know how to get the plan, where to find the information, and what to do in time of crisis. In addition, it needs to live across people, place, and time. This can't live under the direction of Dr. Megerly or Karen or myself. This needs to be something that's sustainable regardless of who is sitting in different offices across the district. It also needs to empower our stakeholders and help them feel comfortable and confident in employing the plan. It needs to be simple enough that everyone who is within the walls of our buildings knows what to do in times of emergency. And last but not least, it needs to be grounded in our responsibility to our stakeholders. We need to keep our kids and our teachers safe, and we need to find a plan that enables us to do that. So when we began this work, we looked at safety response systems in 4 different areas: prevention strategies, preparation strategies, response strategies to times of crisis, and restoration strategies. And you're going to notice that these areas are coded with different color stars. When Karen and I entered into this, we really thought we were going to spend the majority of our year working on a project that helped build prevention strategies and restoration strategies. And we quickly learned after surveying our staff that this wasn't in fact the case. We had made the wrong assumption that our preparation and our response strategies were very soundly intact. What we had failed to realize is we had a lot of turnover during COVID, and this wasn't necessarily a focus during COVID in terms of building our sustainability and our knowledge of the plan. So we had to back up a little bit, and we had to spend a good majority of our time going back through preparation and response, and then also spending some additional time on prevention and restoration. Oh, we've got a lot of fancy transitions in here, don't we? All right. So we looked at, in the areas of prevention and restoration, I'm going to spend a real short amount of time there. We looked at what was in place and what we needed to have in place by spring of 2023. In your board packets, you were able to see this more clearly, but really the purpose of this slide is for you to see that we didn't completely ignore the areas of prevention and restoration should a crisis ensue. We were still able to achieve a lot of goals in this areas. We have improved cybersecurity systems. We're working on improving all of our classroom door locks. We've increased the number of cameras within our building and will continue to do so. We've worked on developing deeper relationship with our community resources. All these things are still happening while we're working in those other 2 areas.
So as Christy said, when we surveyed the staff at the beginning of the year, and we surveyed all staff, all employees, all levels of employees, we found there were more gaps than we expected, and then we chose to really identify 3 subgroups that kind of rose to the surface. And those subgroups are the people who lead the response in times of crisis or in times of emergency. And those groups of people are your administrators, your secretaries, and your crisis team members. And so the meat of the work we've done this year has been in the area of consistency and building consistency across schools, building consistency across responses, and building consistency across leadership. So those 3 improvement strategies, we started with our crisis teams, strengthening and improving the clarity of those teams in all of our school buildings. We looked at the clarity of the safety response expectations. So that an evacuation happens in one building, that it looks and sounds and feels the same in another building. One of the reasons that's so important is our community partners are the same at different buildings. And we want to be able to communicate clearly with our community partners, this is what it's going to look like in District 26. And then finally, leadership commitment and administrative commitment to time and practice for our staff members, including at first our secretaries and our crisis team members, for practice and dialogue about what this looks like in real time when it's not real time. So the first area of focus is relative to our crisis team members. And again, wanting to make sure that those teams are similar across all schools, that we wanted to make sure that the members knew who they were, the administrators knew who they were, that district office staff knew who they were, that those people on those teams understood the different responses, understood the different roles and responsibilities within those responses, because if Donna, if you were on my crisis team, this time I might have you do this role, but next time you might have to do a different role depending on who's here. So it was really important that our crisis teams were deeply a part of talking about the complexity of a response to a high-stakes situation. And then finally, making sure that our leadership was confident in leading that group. So this is just a visual example of some of the work that our crisis team members did. It's not the whole thing, it's just a snippet, but it aligns with, and I wore this loud thing tonight to show that that is really what our ID badges hold, a literal, what is this called? QR code, sorry, that's why I'm not in charge of technology. A QR code to get to the digital documents that we are still finalizing, but it does help us give the cheat sheet to what happens, what are my teachers supposed to do, and secretaries also, what are secretaries supposed to do, and then each of these areas our crisis team members then have, I can say, you're going to be the communicator, you're going to be a member of the district security, or the door security team, you're gonna be a member of our hall monitors, in case of, for example, a secure the school, okay? It's important that our secretaries, our administrators, and our crisis team members deeply understand this, because the rest of the staff are taking care of our kids. And that's a piece that's really important for our community members to understand.
Another area we focused quite a bit on was consistent expectations. And the one that I want to speak most specifically to is the development of this annual safety response calendar. So in this, we learned that all of our building administrators had come into the district at different times, had different training on our safety and security systems, or hadn't had training because they may have come in during COVID. So we created, and this is again just a very small snippet of an annual calendar for our building administrators to use as a guide and somewhat as a checklist to lead them through processes throughout the year. So you'll notice that this runs on a June to May timeline. Starting with in June, our administrators need to complete some very intensive training on incident command structures. This comes from, I believe it's the FBI, this incident command training that they'll participate in, and they really just learn what incident command looks like in times of crisis. So starting this June, all of our administrators will be trained in that. And then this calendar kind of follows. You'll notice there are links within this that will lead to common agendas for them to run their crisis teams through each month, so we can hit similar topics amongst each team, but then our principals can also lead dialogue at their buildings, bring that information back to district team meetings where we can dialogue and we can make any decisions or plan any professional development that is needed by the larger staff. So this is what our annual planning calendar looks like that we're ready to launch in June.
Yeah, you got some transitions, just so you know.
Oh, I have transitions, that's right, so fancy. Is this me or you?
That's you.
All right. And last but not least, one of the big areas, oh, this is yours.
It's mine. We were great until the very end, right? And the final meat of the work that we've done this year is relative to that commitment to preparation and really working with our building administrators, because we're the ones who are planning that dialogue and that professional development throughout the year. Staff need time to dialogue and talk through these real-time experiences when it's not those real high-stakes scenarios. So if you go ahead and click it. This is, again, another example of what we've learned from our community partners. So Officer Sill, the Mount Prospect Police Department partner that we work with a lot, and he comes, we meet with him regularly throughout the year. Our police department uses this as a decision-making model, the OODA loop, and it's actually it's a military strategy. So it's a real thing. If you Googled it, you'd see lots of different images. And when we talk about options-based response to a high-stakes event, and that means what you do in a situation might be different than what I do because we're in different places in the building. We have different kids in front of us. A crisis is happening on the other side of the property. I'm going to respond in a different way, whether it being right in front of me. So those decisions that we make, we need our staff to be able to think through those and practice that. And this is a model that helps us work through different scenarios, different decision making. And we do that when it's not a high stakes. That's what we need to, we're committing to practicing some of these conversations so that teachers and employees can build their confidence in themselves to do what they set out to do, and that is to protect our kids.
So just in summary, what we learned over the course of the year was this need for consistency was huge, and we need to make sure that we commit to maintaining levels of consistency across building. If district staff needs to step in to support a time of crisis, we need to know how things work within buildings, and we need our staff to know that so that they have that reduced anxiety. These are the things that are kind of on our to-do list moving forward, continuing to work on creating those welcoming classroom communities so that our students feel social and emotionally welcome and safe. And that is first and foremost, is to, if our kids feel safe, if our teachers feel safe, then we can have that healthy environment for our stakeholders. In terms of preparation, as Karen said, we're dedicating time for implementation, for professional development, and for conversation amongst our staff in order for them to feel confident in making decisions that are right for them and their students. In terms of response, again, developing that consistency in crisis response, making sure our staff understand what does secure the school mean, what does shelter in place mean, what does evacuation mean. We all need to make sure we know that language and we employ that decision making the same way. And then last but not least, working on, should crisis occur within our district, what tools do we have to support our community when we need to restore or when we need to come back together and reheal. So that's just a very short presentation of the work that we've been doing and we will continue to do, and we're committed to making sure that our district remains a very safe place for our kids and for our teachers.
Thank you, Mrs. Seifert. Ms. Daly, very nice presentation. I do have a question before I open up to the other board members. Were there any anomalies that you came across that limited your consistency? And I'll give you an example. If we had to evacuate all our buildings for some reason, there's, you know, at Prairie Trails, you've got two different doors that you could evacuate from or through, but at River Trails, you know, the middle school, you don't. So are there certain things like that, for example, that interfere in your consistency?
Every building's going to have its unique circumstances, which is kind of where, when we looked at that task sheet in times of crises, Karen's building may look different from Mary's building because of the way we need to evacuate, because of the way we need to relocate. So some of those will look different. Our next step from those task sheets is to create roll cards for each of those that you almost put on a person as a lanyard. So Karen, today, you are a hallway monitor, check your lanyard, you're gonna know what to do. Those are going to look a little bit different building to building, but the roll cards will exist in each building. So if I'm stepping in to lead, I know what I'm stepping into.
And that's what I was hoping to hear, so thank you.
Yeah, I would just add too that we have done things a certain way for a number of years. So one change, one shift, for example, like Prairie Trails, preschool goes one way, kindergarten goes the other. One thing that we wanted was everybody in one spot so that there was a leader taking care of and checking in that one spot. So we did a run through first in the fall, but then we had everyone shift so that we were doing a similar approach.
Just an observation. 3 of our schools have 2 secretaries. And usually during the lunch period, one's on lunch break and the other one's there. Now at Prairie Trails, they only have 1 secretary, it's Mary. And when she's not there, the person that's handling the duties can vary day to day. Usually it's a TA, sometimes it's a lunchroom monitor. So my only question that I have is that it seems from your presentation that the secretaries, admin assistants, whatever you want to call them, they play a very important role in this. So my concern is that if, God forbid, something should happen during that lunch hour and Mary's not there, you might have an important, resource there that might not understand the role that they should be playing. So that would be one area that I think you guys need to possibly look at, if you have not already. Maybe you
Yeah.
have. Okay.
Yeah, that's a
So-
great point. I think one of the biggest challenges we've found with our secretarial staff is finding time to meet with them to dialogue, because they're so essential to the functionings of the building. So June's going to be busy, but no, that's a great point for, and we appreciate that.
You know, and again, I would just add too, we've also had to evacuate, you know, not crisis type things, but we've had plumbing issues, we've had electrical things going on. And so there have been several times where I'll call one building and say, hey, can you go over to Euclid? You know, principals, send this one over to Euclid or send this one over there, just to help each other out. And in that situation, I would envision exactly the same thing. So having these trainings and agendas and going through things, I could send any administrator in to fill into a secretary role or somebody from district office to fill in. So that has been really nice to be able to send people to different buildings, like within minutes, somebody's there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did a lot of, first of all, fantastic job, you know, with the presentation and with the information that you're conveying here. I do have a question. You're talking a lot about doing training and identifying roles and stuff. I just want to verify that we have a good functional plan in place right now, that we've got
Absolutely.
we've done the recent training. Okay.
We
And then
actually just finished our 35-page paper that we had to submit on this, and the data in that was overwhelmingly positive. So even at the beginning of the year, 92 to 94% of our staff were able to accurately align a safety response plan to a scenario. The biggest area that we need to grow and improve is that options-based response. So giving staff permission to do something that they feel is in best interest for their students at that time. A lot of us, myself included, were trained at the time when you did one thing, and that's what everybody did, and that's how you responded to crises. And research and times have changed, and our staff are slowly starting to understand that, but they're not super confident in it yet. So we need to give them permission and give them time to dialogue and practice and think through some of those things. But we are in a great place. If you walk our buildings, you will see that they're secure. The doors are locked. We have secure vestibules. We have secure offices. We are well in front of where a lot of other districts are in terms of security.
Okay, and you bring a great, you know, the word permission. So I want to ask just publicly, give you permission to just give us comfort that you have the resources that you need, that we have the physical security is in a good state, that you have the time and resources to do the training, the materials, and all of that is being properly allocated.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'd say one thing you may see in the future is some bids for some technological systems to house crisis plans. There's a lot of great tools out there. We're still investigating. We're not there yet. We're not ready to make that recommendation. I think in time that would be something that would benefit the district.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I always hate to say this, being the senior veteran on the board, I was on the board when the Mount Prospect Police first implemented a crisis plan with all of the schools in the area. And we had a document. Every board member got a copy of that document. And that document was also on copy with the police department. So with you making all these changes, and yes, I heard you say digital documents. So does the police department have the current digital documents? And I just heard you say you want to house these somewhere, but they should also be with the police department and fire department.
Yeah.
And our resource people who will be responding to these crises. Is that happening?
Yeah, they have access to our plans. They have digital access. The nice part in we need to, we've been working on cleaning up the documentation within there so that it's simple and easy to find. Because their response for something is different than our response would be, but they need to know where to meet us, where we would be located, things like that. And that's why we have the dialogues with them regularly, so that on top of the printed information, they also have had that chance to ask us questions about any plans that we
Okay,
might have.
so they have printed and they have verbal dialogue with you. Okay, and now I know that somewhere on the internet, our web, I found the District 26 crisis plan scenarios. And is that being changed?
I don't know where that is on the web.
It's in there. So one of the important things I want to just, when I came in 2019, the document that you referred to was the document that was handed to me
Okay,
in the same red binder
okay.
it was made in when you originally got it.
Yes.
And then there was a lot of things added to it, but the actual plans were from a long time ago. And they were very similar to the plans 10 years ago when I started in building administration. And so that's part of one of the reasons why we started this conversation at the administrative level with Officer Sill and the police department and the fire department, because responses to these high-stakes crises have changed. And so all of the materials in that binder are not necessarily useful.
Okay,
So what we've tried to do is figure out what is the most important, what are the foundational pieces of knowledge that our employees need to make the best decisions in a moment of crisis. Because if we start there, then the rest of it is icing on the cake.
Okay.
And so that big binder looks like we're really prepared, but it did not.
outdated.
It did not mean preparation. It
Okay.
meant papers. And so also to your point, again, when we talk about what types of resources might come into place, I know the police department and the fire department, so all our fire departments have a lockbox, for example, on all our buildings. And the police department is looking into and talking about a partnership with us, because they're like, I don't know how expensive they are, but to have a lockbox in multiple locations on each of our buildings, so that the police department could enter the building without me, for example. And then in that lockbox would be only accessible to the police department, and it would have some of the things they would need to know what's going on in the, like, what is the where in the building are we, what does the building look like, that kind of stuff.
Good.
So the way in which our emergency responders are looking for information from us has very drastically changed since you and I started this a long time ago.
okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And that's why I brought it up, because,
It looks very different now.
good. Okay, good.
Anybody else? Robert? Your mic's on. Your mic's on. I don't know if you had another comment. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Hey, actually, just really quick follow-up on your comment that the police asked us about implementing a lockbox for them. Any reservations other than buying it?
I think it's just,
No, identifying places for it, where they would like them. Obviously, we have a lot of entry doors. They would like multiple, so it's really just looking at, where
yeah.
they would want it to be. and-
what they're looking into the manufacturer, and then they would have to work with us to put it in. There hasn't been additional conversations other than, hey, these exist, and maybe we should look into them. Honestly, it was literally our last meeting that we had several weeks ago. But that's how ongoing and how malleable this work has to be and remain. Because a binder, like those decisions, it's just so different today than it was a while ago.
So
Okay. Oh, thanks. I thought that was a great suggestion by
Yeah.
them, so
Yeah.
definitely put on the follow-up radar.
All right, sorry, Bill, I didn't think of a question. Just with regards to the cameras, I know that in an incident, it could be very helpful for the police to have access to the cameras. Is that something that's kind of thought out ahead of time, and do they have access? Can we get that to them in a short order? Would that be helpful? I'm just thinking like technology stuff that would be helpful in the event of a crisis.
Matt, I don't know that exists now.
Currently they do not have
have access to our cameras. We can get them access, but currently they do not have access to our server.
You're asking about live access?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if an incident were to come down and, they need to locate, what's going on in the building to
Right.
be able to, from an incident response perspective from their side.
Yeah.
Obviously, we just went through the surveillance policy and there's some considerations there, but, obviously time can be of an essence in various incidents and having eyes inside the building on demand, secure manner, it could be, could really be helpful.
Yeah, we can definitely follow up on that.
Anybody else? Okay,
All right, thanks for your time.
thank you. Committee reports. NSSCO, Mr. Ronstadt, you are our representative.
Okay,
You have
not
the
much
floor.
going on over there. No, just kidding. No, we are very happy to introduce a new superintendent, Dr. Meg Schnorr, at the last board meeting. I thank the board members who came out to meet with her and the community members. I think we got a fantastic new leader to take all of the wonderful things that Dr. Hackett has done over the past about 15 years now and, take us to the next level. Very excited about her coming on board. We do have May 17th, we've got Dr. Hackett's retirement party. As you know, she's won, I think, Superintendent of the Year for the state. I think she just won it for the North Cook Division for this year, and she's been a huge advocate for special needs, not only in our community, but across the state and even the country. So, her service is much appreciated, and, I think it's an invitation. Now, I'll send it out to the board, but if anybody would like to join, please let me know. But working busy on the budget, got the new budget together. Some interesting things out of there. We've got roughly 10 to 12 students. I didn't know this at Minor, and a couple, one or two kids at Timber Ridge, and none at Kirk. So we got a crop of some youngsters over at Minor, and just check that out. Also, with the budget, we're really well staffed at NSSEO, so we don't have the shortages that we've seen over the past year of ESPs. We've got psychologists on staff. We've got a lot of resources for kids that are in a fair amount of need. And the member districts, being a member district, continue to benefit from about a 20% cut in, the tuition's not cheap, but a 20% savings on tuition versus non-member districts. So we certainly do, as a member district, benefit not only having placement, first right of refusal, having discounts for that, but also we benefit from the other services that NSSEO provides. And that kind of wraps things up. We've got graduations coming up as we do here, and very excited about our new superintendent. Thank you.
We're gonna do a question on the budget.
Well, that was my committee report. The next line item is to go over the budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got ahead of myself.
No problem, no problem. You know what, I will add one more thing, is that based on some of the building needs over there, we did hire to do a general contractor or architect to go through and do a study basically on the whole district for the facilities. We're working on that and hoping to come up with some long-term planning objectives with budgets that will work with the business managers at the member districts to fund over time. The The 2024 budget, you know, I can kind of cut down to the part that, you know, impacts us. We've got a couple sheets on here at the bottom. The top of the document gives a kind of an overview of all of the different stats of the district, so you can see, you know, where enrollment is, where you can see where the dollars are going in terms of, you know, the funds, where revenue sources are, you know, ESY, transportation, all that kind of stuff that makes the school district work, or the co-op work. At the bottom does have a breakout, which I believe is, I don't know which page. 22, thank you. Actually, well, page 21, right? Okay. Yeah, down at the bottom. Okay, so it does break down the budget for 2023. It's got the first part of it's got the student counts along with the tuition. The overall budget increase is about 4% on the as a whole. But you know, we purchase various services from NSSEO, and also direct or aids are billed on or one-to-one aids are billed directly back to the district. There is a small retention of the building fund, which I'm not sure that number doesn't jive with me there.
That's our share of the building.
That's your share of that. Okay, and that's just for the life safety stuff that's all been in the works and playing. Okay, yep, okay. And, yeah, it's all broken down, and, yeah, that's it. Do you want to add anything to that?
In terms of, you know, we look, in terms of the overall budget, it is up a little bit. We are purchasing some extra services for coaches to help out with our special education classes our self-contained classes, as well as some of the social workers and psychologists and the teachers. And we do need a little bit more OT this year. We have more students that have OT in their IEPs, so we're getting a little bit more services. So the budget's up a little bit from last year. Part of it too is our students at, I think it's minor, need one-to-one aids, so there's extra costs for that. And we use this budget to put together our budget. We usually put in a contingency because we don't know how many students we might get coming in during the year. But one thing to make a note of, we do not have any private placements currently. NSSEO and our schools are doing all of our special education needs right now. So I think that's a really good thing.
Okay, let me entertain a motion in a second to adopt the resolution for the NSSEO amended 2022-2023 annual budget and the 2023-2024 annual budget.
So moved.
Moved by Fiorito,
Second.
second by Friedland. Does anybody have any questions? You have a question?
Oh, no, I'm getting ready
Gotcha.
when you say.
Any
call the
questions?
roll.
So I apologize if this was listed and I just didn't see it as I was going through this. So where is that piece to set aside the funding? Like, I know she wrote about it in the memo about setting aside funding for like the building maintenance and operational piece that we had discussed previously at other meetings. Where is that as a line item in here? Or was it not?
My understanding is they're going to do that study, like our life safety study that we've done and facility assessment this year. And then decide what that assessment will be for the following years.
Okay, so I did not miss it.
You did
'cause I
not
was
miss it,
worried.
no.
Okay, thank you.
No, so, sorry if I didn't recap that. So there was about $1 million or so in total funds that were returnable to the member districts. We chose as a board, in coordination with the business managers who have been very supportive in this process, to retain about $15,000 to do that architectural study. And then with those funds, we will do the budget planning either for next year or years beyond. but all of that money was, and per some discussions we had here, was returned to all the member districts. And we're not going to, NSSEO is not going to hold the funds, the member districts will, but will be done in coordination with the business managers and the budgeting, so that'll be as part of their planning for, any updates or things to the buildings will be done in coordination with the member districts, and then we'll figure out a way to get that money back over to NSSEO to be spent when the time is ready.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Because I just had in my notes from the last time that you guys were going to discuss it at the following meeting. Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Mrs. Johnson, if you could call roll.
Okay, Ronstadt?
Yes.
I vote yes. Friedland?
Yes.
Camardo?
Yes.
Pfisterer?
Yes.
Fiorito?
Yes.
And Grimpy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And next up is Policy Committee. Mrs. Friedland, you are the chair.
Oh, wait a
Any
minute,
updates?
that was
for
the
us?
resolution. Now we have to vote on the budget, don't we? No. Oh, we don't? Oh, that was the budget. Okay, sorry. Because it says adoption here. Hang on a second. Okay, got it.
You good?
Yeah, I guess I just called you.
Did you want to go back into the budget? Well, no, I mean, that's the only item there is, right?
Well, no, it says motion for the budget. Okay, so how'd I get out? Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so we had our policy our policy meeting earlier this evening, and while there was a lot of review and monitor, or some of these were just like on their 5-year periodic review. The big thing to take away from this was that with the implementation of Faith's Law, which talks about like grooming and sexual misconduct, that has been implemented recently, we did have several policies that were impacted by language having to deal with an employee history review, which is something that they refer to it as EHR, so if anybody sees those, you know what that is. But it's kind of a more extensive review of past histories for employees, for work, rather than, we currently run fingerprinting and everything else for security reasons, and we do our due diligence. This is just putting in place additional checks for new hires and for employees. That was the biggest part. I think, sorry, go through it one more time. Jody, help me, please, if I'm forgetting anything. I feel like that was the biggest one. And then we were also talking, the only other thing was instructional materials, which we're still currently reviewing. And it goes over just some of the information that we exchange on textbooks and instructional materials that are used throughout the year, and how that information is communicated and reviewed by both the board and individuals within the District 26 community. So we will have these in the consent agenda, or that's what we're hoping for the next meeting. So if you review them and have any questions, please let Jody or I know. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the President's Report. Got some events to go over here. On April 21st, we've got bingo at the Euclid School at 6:30 p.m. May 2nd will be our last board meeting for this year. And then we'll have our reorganization meeting shortly after to follow. That will be held here at RTMS. May 9th, the retiree and milestone recognition dinner at Old Orchard Country Club. So please make sure that you RSVP to Patty so she's aware of which board members will be attending. And then May 26th, we have 8th grade graduation at John Hersey High School at 7 p.m. Just a quick update, we have a policy that is Policy 2 Subset 90, which goes over the former board member role at graduation. So within 3 years of the end of a board member's service, the board shall extend the courtesy of allowing a former board member who is a parent or legal guardian of students to present the diploma to the graduating student. This was adopted on August 3rd of 2010, and I'm happy to announce that both Mr. Fiorito and Mr. Bay have accepted invitations to participate in 8th grade ceremony. So it'll be nice to see both of them at the same time. Topics for board reorganization meeting, May 2nd. We have the calendar that's been in the board book. Is there any questions or issues or problems if anybody wants to, except for you, Mr. Fiorito? I don't want to hear it.
I just want.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about this.
Yes.
Are we going to get a separate one that tells us what the topics will be and what school we will be meeting at?
Yeah, like we
Oh,
normally do.
okay.
Yeah.
And we will be, this year, we will be meeting at, going around to all the schools?
Yes.
Okay. Wanted to make sure, okay.
As of right now, we've just got the dates. That's why you only have that. But yeah, you'll get it eventually. Okay. And then we also have the committee updates that's in the board book. Does anybody have any issues or problems with? I have a meeting this week with future board member Kim Bianchini, and I'm going to review this with her so that she's familiar with it and comfortable with it. But does anybody have any questions or issues?
I do have a question and, or concern, I guess, and it's for me being on the wellness committee. I want to do that. However, everyone meets at 4 o'clock because it's composed a lot of, the teaching staff who are staying after school to participate in this. And unfortunately, I don't get done with work. And I'm concerned that I'm not upholding my portion of being the board representation for that committee. I want to do it. So if I can adjust my hours for next year, I definitely want to stay on it. I just want to put that out there to see, because it's neat to interact with the teachers. I just want to make sure that I'm giving them the level of commitment that they deserve.
No, I think that's a fair comment. I guess my question, and I'll pose this to Mrs. Johnson, what's the main difference between, say, the wellness and the benefits? We couldn't put that into one?
I've been attending it, and they address wellness and benefits at the same meeting.
The Wellness Committee is a student wellness committee.
Oh, a
And
student.
it's our national school lunch program requirement.
Oh, okay.
Right, sorry. I mean,
And our
it's
wellness,
most,
and it reviews our wellness policy for students.
yes, and sorry, I mean, it's
Gotcha.
mainly teachers that are participating. There are some parents, and there was a student there last time. It's just discussing more student topics rather than the benefits committee, which is talking about the benefit side of, like our benefits for staff. Right, and what we do, yeah. Well, but not for students, but wellness for the staff.
Wellness for the staff, correct.
Right,
That's what
this
I
is-
thought this committee was, the staff committee.
No, this one is for students.
Oh,
So could we put an alternate?
You could put an alternate, yes. That would be probably a good idea. And you could maybe call it Student Wellness Committee, so that we could distinguish.
To clarify.
Distinguish between the two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would
That-
anyone be interested or able, if there's a meeting at 4, to attend occasionally?
I'm interested, but not at 4. Couldn't make it. We could do a before school one, like a 7 a.m.
and kids aren't up at that time.
Well, that,
thought
and
they
I-
didn't
when
really
the teachers
attend.
here
Wait,
that
wrong
time.
kids. Different set of kids are up. Middle school kids sleep.
It meets 3 times a year.
Right, it's not even. Oh, whoops, it's
I
not
can be an alternate. For if you-
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, be
There you
great.
go. Patty, can you make that adjustment? That'd be great.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on the,
I did have a
Yeah.
question. What happened to the curriculum committee? And then what do we need the negotiations committee for?
the negotiations is really a placeholder until we have another contract. Or if we had to reopen the contract
Well,
for any
so,
particular reason. Sorry, I had my mic in my direction. Yeah, go
no,
ahead.
I apologize, I'm jumping in here. So this is actually one of our items that's in our policy that we have to maintain this specific committee.
Okay. All
So
right,
there are
then-
specific committees that are listed within our policy that we have to maintain.
Okay, then what happened to curriculum?
I can. sort of
Curriculum was
answer that.
not one of them.
But we had a curriculum committee this year, and I think it didn't meet, and it's reabsorbed back mainly into the assistant superintendents presenting curriculum to us, and then within policy, finance, it's kind of
So we would
spread
decide
out.
on it as a board instead of as a committee.
Okay, no, I'm fine with it. I
Yeah,
just didn't,
we-
I don't
We didn't
remember.
have
That
enough
was one of the
topics to meet a-
policies that we actually reviewed at a policy committee meeting that talked about
Hey,
the
I'm all
different
for less
committees, and we
committees, so.
decided to remove that committee.
It was a lot of work for Christy and the rest of the administrators to prepare that information for us and to present. And in all honesty, as we're doing our curriculum review and they're bringing new information to us, those presentations just seem to make more sense in the moment and once they have all of their information prepared instead of doing double work.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you for the explanation.
Okay, next up is the superintendent's report. Dr. Merrily, you are up.
Okay. So it's the end of the year almost, and that is what is happening. So we are in a hiring frenzy. We've got most of our positions posted that we know of, obviously, for right now. And so the next couple of weeks, everyone's going to be busy screening, formulating teams. We've created marketing materials. Our new yard signs came in. So you'll be seeing these when the rain goes away, because we want to preserve them. But you'll be seeing these up and about in the community for hiring. We are planning for a job fair for June 1st and June 2nd. So putting together, again, like organizing materials for that. The focus for that is really like substitutes, assistants. I think, are we partnering with the bus company maybe on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're prepping for that. We've not done that before. And then, we've got our new one-page brag sheet that we're trying to use, proactively to get out there and recruit. So that's kind of happening. I'm sure that you have seen the district calendar with all of the events happening. I don't think there's one free night for anyone until school ends. So testing is pretty much wrapped up. Administration's working on scheduling and sectioning and all of that good stuff. So it's really kind of hard to believe that it's this time of year. Also, a couple other notes. Teacher Staff Appreciation Week is coming up. So that starts May 8th. So if you have a free moment that week, teachers like positive emails, notes, things like that. Administrative Professionals Day is Wednesday, April 26th. So if you know of, let's say, 26, yes, any outstanding administrative professionals that we have around, and just any, just feel free to give them a good shout out or pat on the back.
What date was that?
Wednesday, April 26th. And then we are waiting to hear if we've received the National Green Ribbon Award. That's supposed to come out on Earth Day, which is Saturday, so maybe we'll hear Friday. So that's it. Yeah, a couple things going on.
I have a question for Jody.
Yeah.
So my daughter's going to Illinois State education, and Hawthorne District must have a connection to Illinois State because we received a letter, even though she's going to be a freshman, saying, think of us when you're done with your
Really?
teaching degree. So I'm just wondering if maybe we can reach out to Illinois State and find out how we can
Interesting.
get that mailing list and do the same.
I think I might know somebody at Hawthorne, so I'll have to do some digging on
I'll
that.
bring a copy.
Do you have
of
a
the-
copy?
I think we still have it, but
Okay.
if I find it,
Yeah,
I'll
for
bring it to
sure.
you. Okay.
Interesting.
Can I say
That's
one?
good.
This is the worst time to add this on, and I'm totally not following board protocol. I always rope in our administrators with staff appreciation, so I apologize that I missed the principal and assistant principal day. I wrap everything into staff appreciation, so I just want to say that I do appreciate all of our staff. So you'll get your thank you notes then.
They tell their psychiatrists every year. They complain, it's a big deal. Did you want to talk?
Yeah, well, I thought maybe somebody else would. But yes, we had our first meeting with the community that we put out as Brewing with the Board. I know we're still trying to craft a better title, but we had 5 RSVPs. Donna and Bill were there with myself, 5 RSVPs, and 3 people attend in person. And I really enjoyed it. One of the parents, well, 2 of the 3 parents I knew pretty well just from previous conversations and having my door open. But I thought that it was a nice, comfortable, two-way dialogue, and I felt like that's exactly what we were shooting for. So I thought I thought the hour went by pretty quickly, and thought it was a really good use of an hour, even though it was only 3 people. Next month, we will be at Euclid, and I'm hoping for, a couple more people. And again, establishing stronger partnerships, relationships, and just seeing what's going on in the community.
If I can add to that, I thought one of the reassuring things that really came out was that they really just kind of wanted us to get back to basics. I don't want to use this term negatively, but they accuse us, let's say, for lack of a better term, of looking at things through experienced eyes, and it's tough. And I even experienced this when I was new to the district, that we don't look at things through the eyes of a new family or a new family to the district. Which is an easy trap to fall into. So it was nice that was, one of the complaints, if you will, for us to kind of take a look at our communications and make sure that we're looking at it through the eyes of a new family, per se.
And I would like to add that they did specifically say, we're not here to complain about anything. We're just here to find out why you called this meeting and why you want the public to be here. And what 2 of them said was that they would be taking the information and the conversation that we had back to the people that they hang with and associate with, because not everybody could come to the meeting. So that's good. We need to grow people that are comfortable with talking to the board and taking information back to their group of friends and the people that they associate with.
Okay, future topics. Does anybody have any topics they would like to consider for future consideration? We do have one on the docket so far, block schedule feedback, to just kind of see how that's going, which we'll get next meeting, the next, or the one after that. Do we have a timeline for
Actually,
that?
I'm thinking that would probably roll into like the school reflection,
Oh,
the
sure.
reflections of the school year. So that kind of nests nicely in that.
Did we get, I saw you sent an email about some of the road construction. Did we get a little more info on that from the?
Well, Dan, I talked to Dan Whistler, and he's kind of been all over the village on my behalf, because I was all over the village as well. And the good thing is, so obviously it's down to 1 lane in every direction in that whole intersection. On the website, they do talk about it will be closed for a period of time, but from what we've been able to gather thus far, that'll happen after school. So that'll just be an inconvenience for the residents and not our buses. But thankfully, I hope I'm not jinxing us, but I haven't heard a lot of complaints about it. There's not much that we could do anyway, but.
The light was closed yesterday morning, like blinking. And they started sidewalk construction on Burning Bush at the same time. So it's been a little bit of pedestrian, Prairie Trails pedestrian school bus. Be
No
extra
doubt.
cautious, that's what I'm saying.
Have you guys had any complaints in the district office or from?
No, and I was
From
just
the
going to
bus
add, I
service?
think our biggest struggle is they don't have any definitive timelines. Like, we know there are 3 phases, and it's supposed to last about this long, and it's supposed to last, and then weather impacts that and pushes it back. So it's, Dan has hunted down the foreman of the job to really try to get up-to-date information, but that's as best as we can do. But no, I've not gotten any complaints. Lyndall, have you?
No, and we've been talking to the bus company too, so that they're prepared. We will probably need to keep an eye on it being closed, because we will have 2 buses running for summer school.
One question I do have is, what about the kids that walk and ride their bikes to school? Because it doesn't look like there's anywhere for them to cross. It's just like going from one hole to the next. So
Yeah, I
have
don't
we
know.
had heard anything about nothing?
No, I
Okay,
haven't
that's
heard
good.
anything, but I feel like the same thing is happening in the neighborhood too as I drove through today.
The sidewalks are out and burning bush,
Are they?
like being
Both sides.
repaid, I think so.
Yeah.
And so
And the neighborhood around there.
people
I
are
walked
walking
that-
in the street eventually, but right now the sidewalks on, so people are walking the street, the school bus is stopping, cars are trying to get to Indian Grove. It's a little precarious. Yeah,
Can-
it's a mess.
In tangent with these construction projects, which it is the season, but, you know, I continue to be kind of freaked out a little bit going to the middle school in the mornings, at least with how fast people drive down that road. So just, I have to thank the community for the courteousness in which we kind of all turn into an exit. That's certainly much appreciated, but wow, man, those cars move fast. I do not understand the school. I mean, there's school zone signs up, but I mean, everybody's doing 40, 50 miles an hour down that road when we're you know, at least when I'm dropping off mine in the morning. And I know that's been a long-standing thing, but it's with the construction that could exacerbate some potential safety issues in front of the building. That's one of the other reasons I brought it up.
I
No
have,
doubt.
yeah, I have a question. I noticed that the village or whomever for the project has put up truck detour signs because the trucks cannot make the turns at that intersection. Are we having any problems with the buses making those turns at that intersection?
I have not heard of any problems.
Okay. And if you want to get rid of the speeding, just stand out in front of the school one day with a camera, with a video camera, with no recording on and no tape in it, but just point it at people and you would be surprised.
I don't think we can condone that as a board, Don. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't, I mean, in all seriousness, just as a parent, I called the Mount Prospect Police Department in the early part of the year to just say, holy cow, they're not paying attention to the speed. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else we can or should be doing. I have to assume that it's kind of similar at Euclid, being on a busier street. You know, Indian Grove is a little bit more insulated, and Prairie Trails is off, you know, on a side street for that entrance. But between Euclid and the middle schools, it really could, I don't know,
Well, I
enforcement,
know the
better
police department still
signage.
does their beat meetings. So I would encourage people to attend when it's in that beat. And
I know, it's almost like, I don't, again, if the signage isn't right, or the, you know, or the enforcement, or, I don't know, but it's just,
I mean, not
Doesn't
that I
seem to
don't
get
echo
better.
your, but it's not much we as a board could do. All right, then that brings us to closed session. So let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and go into closed session. So I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn the regular Board of Education meeting at 9:27.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Friedland, second by Camardo.
Okay. Fiorito,
Yes.
Fisterer,
Yes.
I vote yes. Friedland?
Yes.
Ronstadt?
Yes.
Grimpy?
Yes.
And Camardo?
So I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn. We are adjourned.
Here, here.
That was a weird feedback.
It was my computer.
Oh, I was like, that was fun feedback.